Right, this week we are going to talk about something which I have been struggling with, and I struggle with every single year. It's something that comes up yearly, and we're dealing with it right now, and that is this kind of winter feeling, right? And the difficulties of dealing with not just bad weather, but dull weather, constantly dull, uninteresting light, a lot of grey, there's nothing super interesting to go out and shoot, there's a lot of wet, cold, dark nights. I don't even really always love going out in this weather at all because it's really cold. I'm really cold, and then it's raining and it's windy, and you get out there and it doesn't feel like there's loads of stuff to shoot. But it's still a big part of the year, and there definitely is stuff to shoot. So let's talk about that. It's Tutorial Tuesday. Welcome back to Tutorial Tuesday, where each and every Tuesday we bring you a brand new, that's not even the bit I was supposed to do, fresh photography tutorial. Now let's talk about dealing with this kind of winter problem, the grey, the dark, the wet, the cold, and the just uninterestingness of everything out there that doesn't make it super fun to go out and take photos. This obviously massively applies, at least to me, for landscape photography, but there's loads of stuff, right? Even stuff like wildlife and nature, just doing portraits. It just doesn't feel like a super inspiring time of year to go and take those photos, to go and capture things, and to head out and about. Not least, like I said in the intro, because I don't really want to be super cold and in the wind and all that kind of stuff. So let's go over a few tips that can really help. These have helped me a lot, because you still want to be able to take photos, right? You don't want to just stop taking photos, stop all photography for, 3-4 months of the year. That would be crazy. So let's get into it. Number one, lean in to the bleakness of all of it. This is a big one. And as soon as I realized that instead of trying to combat the bleakness, lean into it, and you can actually go for that kind of thing. Now, exactly what do I mean by that? Well, there's a few different ways to think about this. The kind of loneliness of the landscapes, no leaves on the trees, the grey, uninteresting light, everything's wet, it looks cold. Lean into it. Capture that vibe. Make that the story that you're telling. Even better if you can actually lean into a little bit of mist, a little bit of fog, right? That super grey, flat, dull light. You can use that to your advantage a little bit by telling this story of a very bleak winter landscape. Capturing the mist of a forest or a wood or something like that can really help to make it a very, very different kind of photo to anything that you would get in the summer. I'm always trying to combat it. I'm always trying to get those beautiful shots, but sometimes don't lean into the beauty of that beautiful light coming through, the colors everywhere, everything looks amazing. Lean into the loneliness and the cold, the bleakness of all of it. That's the winter vibe that you're sometimes going to get. And once you start looking for that, it's everywhere. With that grey weather, you can get some really interesting and different kinds of photos. Tip number 2 is to use the bad weather to your advantage. So actually, when it's not just still and grey, when it's windy, you can get loads of interesting drama into your images. A great one for this is anywhere where there's water. You can capture some really different and interesting dramatic photos by really leaning in, once again, to that bad weather. The wind is going to really kind of stir things up. You're going to get crazy waves smashing against rocks, and you can make the most of that by actually just going out and taking those photos. This goes for things like rain, mist, fog. That can all be a really useful thing to add to your photos. Add some atmosphere, add some story, some drama. This really helps to boost the kind of different type of photos you can get this time of year. So if you look out the window and you're thinking, it's grey and uninteresting, well then lean into the bleakness. If you look out the window and you're thinking, raining a lot or very windy, well then time to go look for that drama, right? If it's raining a lot, maybe it's time to look at street photography where you can get some really interesting different kinds of stories in the rain. Tip number 3 is to make the most of the good light as soon as it's available. It doesn't seem to last very long. It can be fleeting. It's not around all the time. So as soon as I see that, I actually sit right next to a window. As soon as I see nice, beautiful winter sunlight, I'll head out and take some photos, because you're not guaranteed to have that all the time. It is fleeting, like I say, so make the most of it. Head out, have a little plan of where you might want to go. It doesn't matter kind of what time of day it is, because the light's not around for very long anyway. And in the winter, the sun never gets that high in the sky. So you're always getting some interesting directional light. To be honest, winter light can be, in some ways, some of the most beautiful light that you'll get all year. It just has that very soft, very lovely look to it. So make the most of it as soon as it's there. Now, tip number 4 is the last tip, but I was kind of debating whether to make this 4 and 5. It's kind of 2 tips in one. So this is try out some other types of photography, try out some other things within photography. So for example, portraiture. Maybe it's time to do some indoor portraits. Maybe it's time to try some product photography or some food photography, something you don't have to go out and about. If you're just like me and you just almost really don't want to go out into the cold, it's too cold, it's too windy, it's too wet, it's dark, well then stay in. There's lots of things to photograph indoors, right? Try food photography. That's a really interesting creative type of photography that you can try. We've got videos on the channel with a few tutorials. There's lots of things you can do there. Same with product photography. I find that really interesting. It's really creative. And sometimes you put it off because you think, oh, I should head out. It's a beautiful day. But it's not so beautiful at the moment. So why not stay in and just start playing around? You never know what you might learn there that then actually applies to other types of photography later on. The other part to this tip is maybe it's time to tackle some of that editing backlog. Now, if you're anything like me, you've got some photos waiting to be edited, but you always put them off because there's always something else to do. I'm going to go take these new photos, and then you want to edit those because they're new. But maybe you've got some photos in the backlog. Maybe you've got some things waiting to get to. And if you don't have any old ones, maybe it's time to revisit some older photos. Re-editing photos from a few years ago, 5 years ago, let's say 6 years ago, even a little bit more recent than that, can be really interesting. Just the way that you would approach the photo and how much you've learned since then can really change the way you look at how you want to edit it and what the final result is actually going to be. These are all great ways to tackle the kind of winter blues of photography, which I struggle with every single year. And these are all things that I've started doing to try and get on top of that, to try and actually push into it and actually, in some of these situations, lean into it more, right? Choose to enjoy it. That's a big part of it as well. But I'd love to know, are there any tips that you have to overcome the kind of winter photography blues that we haven't mentioned in this video? I'd love to know because it's really interesting and it's something, like I say, that really affects me in particular. So I'd love to learn from you as well. Now, we've had some great ideas for future Tutorial Tuesdays in the comments recently. I'm absolutely taking notes because I'd love to make the ones that you want to see. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you for all the lovely comments as well. You guys are the best. We really do have the best community out there, I think. But if there are any future Tutorial Tuesdays you would like to see on the channel, let me know down in the comments because I would appreciate every idea and I want to make sure I'm making the stuff that you guys want to see. Don't forget to like and subscribe as well. There's new content all the time. I will, of course, see you in the next video. But until then, as always, thanks for watching.